Welcome to VHS Voyage, where we're on a journey to find, watch, and discuss movies on VHS we've never seen or never knew existed. I'm Matt.
I'm Devin.
Today's episode, we're going to talk about
Powder.
Before we start talking about Powder, I do want to clear one thing up. We are well aware of the controversy involving this director, and I think it's important to be able to separate yourself from controversies involving certain people involved with movies so that you can still enjoy the movie itself. Because you got to remember, more than one person works on a movie. So it's not fair to all of the other people that worked on this movie or any other movie to slam a movie or not watch it just because of one really bad apple. So I'm going to leave it at that, and we're going to go ahead and get into some facts and information about Powder.
So unfortunately, I could not find any facts about this movie except for some of the stuff that happened.
Right.
So this stars Sean Patrick Flanery, Mary Steenburgen, Lance Henriksen, and Jeff Goldblum.
Essentially, the movie opens up with a man and his pregnant wife going to the emergency room because his pregnant wife, well, you don't know what happens to her yet. You find out later in the movie, but something happens to her. She ends up dying, but the baby lives. The doctors tell the man, hey, your baby unfortunately is albino, meaning he has ashy white skin and blue eyes, which is like a genetic mutation of sorts. And they're scanning the baby's brain waves, and his brain waves are going off the charts, and the father sees his baby and he's like, you're not my baby. He's like, he's upset because his wife died, and he's upset that his baby's not normal. So he basically abandons the child, and he ends up living with his grandparents. Flash forward like 15 to 20 years later, he's living with his grandparents. His name is Jeremy Reed, but his nickname is Powder. He's living with his grandparents. His final grandparent, his grandfather, ends up dying. Cops show up. They find him down in the basement. A woman shows up. I guess she's like a social worker, or works for like a orphanage or something like that. Of course, when they see him for the first time, they're completely shocked by his appearance, right? Because that's a rare thing to see, is a person that's an albino, especially to the degree that he was, because his skin was like really, really, really white.
That scene is a complete ripoff of Edward Scissorhands.
Is it really?
Literally a complete ripoff.
Huh.
He's hiding in the corner of the darkness. The woman comes in the room. She's like, who are you? And he's like talking from the darkness. And then when he appears, they're like, oh my God, he's pale, just like Edward was.
Nice.
It's presented exactly the same way. It's a complete ripoff of it.
Yeah. Not only is he has a super genius intellect, like they do an IQ test and his scores are so off the charts that it seemingly he is one of the most intelligent people on the planet. But he also has several powers. He can magnetize things. He can use telekinesis. He can read people's minds when he touches them, but also at a distance, he can almost kind of get a sense of their thoughts and emotions and things that they're feeling. He also has a photographic memory. There's a scene kind of in the beginning of the movie when they first discover him where the woman, and I can't remember her actual name in the movie, but the woman, she realizes that he has memorized every word of every book in the basement where he was staying, and there's literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of books down there.
Where lies the final harbor whence we unmoor no more? In what rapt ether sails the world of which the weariest will never weary? Where is the foundling's father hidden?
And he's almost childlike in his personality because he has been with his grandparents his whole life and never left the house, because it's like they've been kind of keeping him as a secret. So the movie basically follows Powder, Jeremy Reed, as he's navigating this town and trying to figure out his place in the world and interacting with everybody. Like Jeff Goldblum is a teacher. He meets a girl named Lindsay, who's a redhead, who develops a relationship with him. And he's also experiencing all of the issues that people in town have with him. People are scared of him because they find out about some of the powers that he has. So the movie's about him kind of navigating all this, and at the end of the day, all he wants to do is go back home.
I don't like a lot about this movie. I have quite a bit I want to say, but the things I do like, I did like the main actor that plays Powder.
Yeah, he did a really good job.
Yeah, I did enjoy, and I didn't hate the character of Powder. There's some things that the way he's written that bothered me a little bit, but I didn't hate the main character of Powder. I thought he was, I did have a connection to him. Probably the only character I really felt a connection to. Maybe the cop a little bit, because of his wife being sick.
Right.
But yeah, I did enjoy the acting. I didn't think it was terrible or anything. I thought it was pretty good.
One scene that I enjoyed was whenever he's in the orphanage, he's eating with the boys, and of course, the alpha male, I guess you could say, of the orphanage comes over there with his little gang of friends, and they sit down at the table with Powder, who's sitting by himself, and he's just sitting there trying to mind his own business, eating his food. Of course, they come over there, and the main bully is like, I want you to balance a spoon on your nose, or we can shove it up your ass. Powder grabs the spoon, and he like rubs on it with his thumb, and sets it on the table where it's standing straight up, and he magnetizes it and causes all the silverware in the cafeteria to come flying and attaching to the spoon. And all the boys in the cafeteria are just like in complete shock and utter disbelief at what they're seeing. They're just completely speechless. They don't even know what to say.
I don't like when movies have portray some kind of like mental illness or something wrong with somebody, and they portray them as an outcast. I don't like that, because I don't think you're an outcast if you have something wrong with you. I think it's something that everyday humans and people deal with, but for some reason movies have an obsession with always casting this person as a freak or a weirdo or an outcast, when in reality you're just a normal person usually dealing with things. And I think that sometimes there's better ways to go about it than always making the person a freak or something.
I agree, but here's the thing. It was a product of its time.
Exactly. Yes.
When this movie came out, people didn't understand mental illness as much as they do today.
It came out in 1995, I believe. So I did. The movie is definitely a little bit out of touch as well. It's a little dated and out of touch.
Definitely dated. You got to put yourself kind of back in those days.
But I just don't really like when movies portray people that have, like I said, something wrong with them in quotations, as like these freaks or outcasts, because they're not.
Okay, so there's one really weird scene in the movie that I want to talk about a little bit. Early in the movie, when Powder goes to school for the first time, he's in class. Jeff Goldblum's class, and Jeff Goldblum, it's like a science class, and he pulls out this machine. I can't remember what it's called, but it's like where you can see the flow of electricity, and it starts affecting Powder. He is affecting it, causing the electricity to get stronger and stronger. An arc of electricity goes into his Powder's chest, raises him up into the air, and it's just all this chaos until Jeff Goldblum finally destroys the machine and stops it. Powder's on the ground. He goes over and he lays his hand on Powder, and you see the hairs on his arms standing up, and Jeff Goldblum gets this weird look on his face, like, oh, like he's feeling this energy flow into him. And so later in the movie, Powder's sitting by himself in a room, and Jeff comes in there and starts talking to him, and he's like, when I touched you, it gave me more energy than I've ever had before, made me feel young, my sex was better. And
that is another big problem I have. I think that is the director projecting himself into this character, if you get what I'm saying. I think he is projecting the way he is as a person into this scene, and it made me very uncomfortable.
Yeah, that scene was uncomfortable. This was a weird scene. It was an uncomfortable scene. And then he comes up to Powder, and he's like touching his hand, and because it's almost like he's addicted to the energy that he gets from Powder. That was a weird scene. It's
weird. I think the director is trying to project himself into the writing. He's trying to justify his horrific actions that he did, and it made me very uncomfortable. That's like my least favorite scene in the entire movie. It is very weird.
Yeah, I didn't like that scene either.
Yeah.
Powder's on like a camping trip with the boys at the orphanage, and the old guy cop is there, the asshole cop is there. They were hunting. They weren't supposed to be, but they were hunting, and they shot a deer. But it wasn't a kill shot. It was, even though the cop was like, oh, that's a kill shot. It wasn't a kill shot. Because he can sense emotions and thoughts, he can feel that deer's pain and feel that it's fixing to die. And he's sort of angered by this, puts his hand on the deer, grabs the cop's arm, and he's able to transfer the emotions and thoughts of what's going through that deer's mind into the cop and make him feel all the pain and feel death approaching.
Hey, come on! Let the guy go! Oh my God! Cut it out, man! Stop, man! It's like just...
I found the music in this movie to be very weird. It was like very happy-go-lucky, like hopeful, but the movie really is like really underlying dark and kind of depressing.
Yeah.
Really. But it had like this like very whimsical, happy score. The movie's a melodrama though.
Powder almost gets laid in the movie, sort of. He's at the circus fair with the redhead.
I don't know if he almost got laid. He kissed a girl. Okay.
Yeah, he kissed a girl.
Yeah.
He kissed a girl, and then her dad sees it, and he comes over, and he gets all aggressive with Powder. And there was another weird scene that I didn't quite understand. Towards the end of the movie, he goes into the basketball court with the boys playing basketball, and he sees one boy in the bathroom with his shirt off, and he's like staring at him, and I didn't quite understand.
Again, I think this is the dude writing the movie.
Yeah, that scene. Yeah, that scene. Well, that was a little weird because there was no
no point
to it. It was just weird.
Again, I think the director and the writer, the man is projecting himself onto some of his thoughts onto these characters. Yeah.
So I really liked the movie. And I'm trying so hard to not think about the director whenever I'm thinking about this movie, trying so hard, but outside of the couple of scenes that were uncomfortable that we talked about, but I'm trying so hard to separate myself from that, because I really like this movie. And one of the reasons why I really like this movie is because it gave me an emotional response at certain times in the movie. And that it's very rare that movies give me an emotional response. If a movie gives me an emotional response, to me, that movie did something right, at least for me. But all in all, I enjoyed it, and for me, it's a keeper. But I want to hear your final thoughts.
Yeah, I don't like this movie. I think I think, like I said, it's a little dated and out of touch, which I get. It was for the time. Yeah. I felt like I was watching like an SNL sketch. That's what this movie felt like to me. It felt like an SNL sketch. It was goofy. It portrayed, like I said, it portrayed people with problems, kind of dumb in my opinion. And I know you said you're trying to separate the guy from the story, but he's putting himself into the character, so it's impossible to separate it in this situation. There's some creepy, weird scenes in this movie. I just don't like this movie. I thought it's not good weird. It's weird, but it's not good weird. I got a lot of problems with this movie.
It's a keeper for me, so it's going back on the shelf. I could see myself watching this again, although I might fast forward through the weird scenes. Well, that is it for today's episode on Powder. I'm Matt.
I'm Devin.
And we'll catch you guys next week.